It was 3 years ago today where we lost now 60 people, sadly, to this horrible shooting that took place Route 91. But, I'm focusing now. I'm trying to focus on the positive. There are so many great people in this city that did so many wonderful things to help those that were suffering. And by the way, they still are. And that one of those organizations is the Vegas Golden Knights. I'll always remember that season opener. Everybody was teary-eyed. It was incredible. And a guy that can give us perspective on that, a big fan of his. He does a great job as the TV voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. That would be Dave Goacher, who joins us right now on the line. Dave, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, pleasure, guys. Good to be with you.
Dave, I appreciate it. Let me start by asking you this. You were in the arena, as I was, the season opener 3 years ago today, October 1. What stands out to you on that day?
Well, the first thing I always think of is Derek England's speech. That just the emotion of that, and we all know Derek's history of, married a Vegas girl and spent, I think at that point, 13 or 14 off seasons in Vegas. So I don't think there's anybody else that should have given that speech. I thought he hit all the right notes, and just the emotion of it. It wasn't a long speech. Somebody, it's interesting. Somebody said, I think last year, that ironically enough, that speech was 58 seconds long. And I thought just how eerie that is. And I know you mentioned we're sadly up to 60 people we lost that night. But so I think of his speech. I think of, all the first responders, police, firemen, nurses, doctors brought out on the ice individually by a Golden Knight. And just, and then after the emotion of that, honestly, I remember that I didn't think there was any way that the Golden Knights were going to lose that game. And the game was secondary. If they had lost, honestly, it didn't matter. But
right.
They made sure that wasn't going to happen.
And something else, and you're right, they kicked some butt that night. I believe it was against the Coyotes, if I'm not mistaken. And that, I remember those first few weeks of the season, we saw something in the NHL that we don't see a lot of, and that is when singing of the national anthem, we saw the away team actually skate right behind the Vegas Golden Knights and stand behind the Knights. I thought that was so cool. I just thought the way the NHL handled it and the class of some of these away teams that came here and playing the Vegas Golden Knights, I thought they showed a lot of class as well.
Yeah, and it was interesting, too. It happened on the road, too. You remember the Golden Knights started on the road, right? We had a couple of games, one in Dallas and one in Arizona, before the home opener at T-Mobile. And, and I think that that just goes to show you. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be around hockey players for a long time, and they are a very special group, and especially when you see just the horror of what happened that night. And, the Golden Knights just trying a little bit to try to help heal and make people feel a little bit better in whatever way they could. I think other teams around the league, and I think, heaven forbid this happened in a different city, you'd see a similar reaction that when something like that happens, we're all in it together.
Can you talk a little bit, Dave, just about how the team kind of embraced the city? It wasn't just the city that embraced the team. And what about that unbelievable year one, right, where they make the Stanley Cup Finals? It just seemed like the players, not that they need to be inspired, but it just seemed like the players were playing inspired hockey, a new team. Everybody was new, new chemistry. And it just seemed like the hockey that they played throughout the year was so consistent, and I just do believe a part of the reason why it was because they were so inspired by this city and the way this city came together to embrace that hockey club.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's interesting when you think about the timing of it. The Golden Knights had yet to play a game when that horrible night happened, and personally, I had only been in town 3 weeks, having moved out here from Boston to take the TV job. And then all of a sudden this happens. And I think that, the Golden Knights tried just as best as they could. I remember thinking back in that time frame, even if, for everyone that was affected by this, even if it's only for a couple of hours a day, you can turn on a game and watch it, at least maybe a little bit for those 2 hours. It's a little bit of a distraction and a little bit of a diversion. But I think that whole first season, you're exactly right, was against the backdrop of what happened on 1 October, which was 5 days before the Golden Knights were going to play their first ever game. And I think that bond between the team and the community was forged out of, albeit a horrible event, and that bond, I don't see that ever being broken. I think it's that strong. But, yeah, I call it what's the old Steppenwolf song? A Magic Carpet Ride.
Right,
That was that first season.
That really was, wasn't it, Dave?
It was wild.
You're absolutely right. If you're just joining us, we're speaking to the TV voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. He does a wonderful job. That is Dave Goacher. He's sharing his thoughts on October 1. Dave, I still get goosebumps, and the Vegas Golden Knights, the organization, they still do this to this very day, where I believe they honor at least one responder, one hero. It could be a man or a woman in uniform. It could be somebody from October 1. It could be a police officer or a victim of the shooting. I still get goosebumps because every single time they take a moment to honor somebody like that, everybody stands up and gives a standing ovation. And like I said, it gives me goosebumps, and I love the fact that the Knights still do that.
Yeah, it's. And I don't know if that'll ever, well, at least in the foreseeable future, I don't know if that'll ever stop. I just think that's how hard hit we all were by that event. And I try to put myself back in that time frame 3 years ago. You had all this excitement of the Golden Knights here and the first ever Major League team in Vegas. And, we have a great production team of the Golden Knights that had this elaborate home opening night all planned out. It had been planned out for months, and they had to do a complete 180 in a span of about 9 or 10 days to certainly pay ultimate respect to everything that happened on 1 October, and then shift the next home game to what they wanted to do on opening night. But yeah, as they say, it's and they're going to be out there again today.
I want to talk about that. Yeah,
they've been great in the community and trying to. It's part of a tradition here on 1 October.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about what's going on today, Dave? Maybe you could tell people about it. I know they have this blood drive going on, and the Knights are still so involved with helping this community heal 3 years later. Can you talk a little about what they got going on today?
Yeah, starting soon, guys. 11 o'clock, 11 to 6 down at T-Mobile. The Golden Knights and the American Red Cross are going to get together and do a blood drive, pretty much all afternoon long. I'm actually heading down there myself just to kind of do whatever I can for a while today. You've got some players that are going to go out, and one thing they've tried to do over the last couple of years is visit with as many different command centers for the Vegas Metro Police that they can. So so far, anyways, it looks like Marc-Andre Fleury and William Karlsson and Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault and Paul Stastny and Max Pacioretty and Cody Glass, among others, are going to be out there delivering meals to a lot of the Metro police officers.
Oh, that's awesome.
As well. They're going to donate 1,000 tickets to Metro Police coming up for games whenever they might start. Actually, the first responders coming up for games this coming season. So, again, I think whatever they can do. Whatever
that's awesome.
They can do to try to help out more.
That is great. That is great. I guess now that you mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury and you are the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights, let's talk a little hockey here for a moment, if I may. You mentioned Marc-Andre Fleury. He said publicly that he wants to stay here. He wants to stay in Las Vegas. I believe him when he said that. Is that going to be difficult to do when you look at what his agent did on social media? And I know that's not Marc-Andre Fleury's fault. When you look at this kind of, I don't want to call it a goalie controversy, but I don't know if anybody really expected Marc-Andre Fleury not in net in the playoffs. What do you make of Marc-Andre Fleury's situation right now, and do you believe that he remains a Vegas Golden Knight?
Yeah, a lot of it, I think, to a degree, is going to be up to him. Look, if Robin Lehner signs to stay in Vegas, and that's something that could happen here very shortly. Free agency starts a week from tomorrow. If he decides to stay in Vegas and the Golden Knights keep Lehner, then Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, to a degree, has a decision to make. Is he going to be okay being in a tandem with Lehner, or if he wants to be a clear-cut number one guy, and Leonard's part of the mix here, then that's not going to happen here. And therefore, more than likely, he and the team are going to have to move on. Now, if they can work it out and coexist, and I hope they can, guys, because if you have the two of them over the course of a full season, you've got, if it's not the best tandem in the league, you've got certainly, one of the best. But a lot of this is going to depend on if they decide to sign Lehner, and if they do, is Fleury going to be okay? Now you're going to have a lot of money tied up in two goaltenders.
Sure, yeah. There's a lot of intangibles there. You're absolutely
that's part
right.
of it. Yeah, and can they free up money in other areas? But some of this is going to be if Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be okay with that. If he's not, then it might be better off for all concerned to move on.
Yeah, no question. So, Dave, let's talk about these 3 years. We already talked about year one, a magical year, as you said, and you're absolutely right. They make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Unbelievable. Year two, listen, they, for lack of a better term, they got absolutely hosed. They got screwed by what took place in that San Jose Sharks series. I think we all can agree on that one. But this year just seemed to be an up-and-down year. It was a bizarre year. I, for one, certainly did not think that Gallant was going to be let go mid-season. I thought that was really odd, considering the fact that a lot of people had him at the All-Star game as one of the top coaches in the league. I thought that was really bizarre. And then I'm sure you would agree, the season did not end the way the Vegas Golden Knights expected it to end, losing to the Dallas Stars the way they did. What do you make of this year?
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around it a little bit, right, because of this whole crazy world we're living in now with the pandemic and a 4-month pause. I guess I'll go back to where you started. Yeah, I was a bit surprised they let Gerard Gallant go. You mentioned the All-Star game. He was supposed to coach the Pacific Division All-Stars,
right.
and he never got there.
Right.
Which is crazy. That being said, guys, I think they felt, they being, the higher-ups with the Golden Knights, I think they felt that as a team they were underachieving. And if that's the case, you have limited options. But one of your options is to make a coaching change. I was surprised by it. I was more surprised by who they brought in. I think we have our own little podcast we do, and I think I said at the time, you can't make this crap up. It's crazy, that Pete DeBoer would be the guy that gets brought in. But that being said, they went 15-5-2 in the 22 games before the pause with DeBoer. I was pretty convinced they were going to at least go to the Cup final. I'm surprised they lost to Dallas, but they never were able to recover their offensive confidence after that Vancouver series. You remember those last 3 games?
Sure. Yep.
Boy, do they have a hard time scoring goals.
They did.
And they never really seemed to shake out of that against Dallas. Now, I don't know, guys. I don't know if anyone was going to beat Tampa Bay this year. They seem to be kind of a team on a mission after what happened last year. But that being said, hey, look, if you're down to the final 4 teams, you've had a pretty good year, however this year panned out in the crazy way it did. But,
sure.
I think they felt that, they maybe were capable of more, and more for them would have been at least to get to the Cup final.
Yeah, no question. So, Dave, this is about the time where we would be talking NHL preseason hockey, right? I mean, this is so weird. Can you give the hockey fans here, a rundown on what is next year going to look like? When is training camp going to start? When are we going to see hockey again?
Well, yeah, that's the question right now that we're kind of turned to a new season. I think anyone would be guessing. Right now the dates are mid-November for training camp, early December to start the regular season. Honestly, guys, I don't know if that's going to happen. The NHL as a league cannot survive long-term without some sort of semblance of fans in the building. So whether they push it into the new year, which I think is certainly a strong possibility. Hopefully we have a lot of smart people in our country that might be able to come up with some sort of a vaccine. Rapid testing, maybe that accelerates. You can get people safely in buildings at a certain percentage. But I think it's all a big, it's a guessing game right now. I just, at some point, they're going to have to safely try to find a way to get a percentage of fans in the building, and maybe you ramp it up. I joke around, guys. It might just be the 2021 season. 2020 might not be fun. That might not happen.
That's
Hopefully
so crazy.
Not, but that might be the case.
Well, let's say hypothetically that it ends up starting on January 10th, something like that. Do you see, because of the fact that there has been hockey played, and when in competitive sports, when you play sports too much, you have a chance to get injured. Is there a chance that the season is shortened to kind of even things out for and kind of get back to square one for the 2021-2022 season?
Yeah, I think that's conceivable for sure. I think that what they don't want to have happen is you've already had this season completely screwed up.
Right.
Next season is going to be messed up in some way, shape, or form. You don't want to screw up 3 seasons. You don't want to get into, they want to stay out of the summer as much as they can.
Of course.
Obviously. So what does all that mean? Well, they could play a compressed schedule. Usually average about 3 games a week in the regular year now. You might have to jam in a 4th game per week. Maybe you shorten it. They didn't always play 82. There was years they played 72 games and 74 games. There was one couple of years they played 84 games. So, could you trim maybe 10 games off the schedule? Owners aren't going to want to do that because it means money, right? You're losing home games.
Right.
But right now, Lord knows what they're losing with not having any fans in the building. So, yeah, I think that's all in play. Shortened schedule, condensed schedule to try to get it back to where it ends at some point, in the middle of June.
Well, I'll tell you this, Dave, you're great at what you do, my man. We're really glad that you are the voice of the Vegas Golden Knights. You do a great job. Watch all the away games, and you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us. We appreciate it. And thanks again for going out there to that blood drive. We hope a lot of people out there join you. It's a great thing what this organization is doing. Dave, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Hey, you bet, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right,
thanks a lot,
there you
Dave.
go. That's Dave.